You may have noticed it, the strange sensation that the solid world around you has begun to shimmer, as if the edges of things are no longer fixed. Rooms you've walked through 1,000 times now carry an unfamiliar charge. Your skin hums faintly. Your thoughts arrive in waves, and something deep within you knows this isn't random. What you're feeling is not confusion or exhaustion. It's a signal, an initiation. Reality itself seems to be retuning you. These tremors of awareness mark the beginning of what many call the quantum upgrade, the natural evolution of consciousness, once it crosses a certain threshold. It doesn't depend on rituals or formulas. It arrives on its own, like an unseen update in the operating system of the cosmos. When your inner frequency aligns, universal intelligence begins adjusting the architecture of your body, your mind, and the luminous field surrounding you. Old patterns loosen their grip. Perception expands. What once felt like effort now feels like participation, as though awareness is no longer a passenger reacting to events, but a creative force shaping them. Even sleepless nights become evidence of multi-layered processing, your nervous system learning to interpret information from subtler planes. Moments of distorted time when hours vanish or seconds stretch infinitely are not malfunctions. They're glimpses of a wider reality in which linear time is only one small current. Pay attention to the anomalies, a clock pausing at the instant of revelation, a flicker of light when emotion surges, a sudden glitch in a device during deep reflection. These are not coincidences, but confirmation signs that consciousness and environment are beginning to converse directly through the electromagnetic field. And when this conversation begins, excitement and doubt will rise together. That's natural. The old logic will demand mechanical explanations, but the deeper current simply asks for recognition. In that moment of acknowledgement, resonance locks in and the upgrade advances. The pulse you felt in that acknowledgement, subtle, electric, undeniable, is where the deeper mechanics unfold. What you call awakening is not a metaphor, but a systemic recalibration. Imagine consciousness as the hidden circuitry of existence. Every thought, emotion, and moment of focus sends a current through that network, altering its voltage, reshaping its pattern. When your awareness reaches a particular resonance, it triggers a universal protocol, an auto-update written into the architecture of life itself. You are not forcing change, you are being changed. The universe has been quietly monitoring coherence, waiting for alignment, and once the signal reaches critical stability, it activates. The process is effortless but profound, like a dormant code finally running its next sequence. Cells reorganize, neural pathways rewire, subtle electromagnetic layers surrounding the body synchronize with frequencies far beyond what the senses once perceived. The body begins translating data it never knew existed. You may notice sensations, first pressure behind the eyes, warmth spiraling through the spine, tingling across the palms. They feel mysterious, but they are informational. Universal intelligence communicates through the language of energy long before the intellect can interpret it. What seems like discomfort is your nervous system recalibrating to process broader bandwidths of awareness. Every pulse of vibration is a message: adapt, expand, receive. In this stage, logic often rebels. The old system of effort, control, and predictability cannot comprehend an upgrade that installs itself. Yet this is how evolution operates. Grace disguised as chaos. Consider how an ecosystem renews itself. The forest burns, and through the ashes, richer soil emerges. The human operating system follows the same pattern. What collapses inside you is not malfunction, but release. The walls that kept you safe also kept you small. When you stop resisting, the process accelerates. Each exhale becomes a reset command. Each quiet acceptance creates bandwidth for higher coherence. Universal intelligence does not demand belief, it requires stability. A balanced frequency allows more data to flow through, much like a clear signal enables perfect transmission. So your work is not to push harder, but to remain open while the field restructures itself around your stillness. During this reprogramming, awareness begins to act differently. Instead of reacting to external circumstances, it starts to generate them. What used to appear as coincidence becomes coordination. You think, and reality subtly rearranges. You feel, and energy responds. The distinction between inner and outer begins to blur, revealing that they were never separate at all, only reflections of one continuous field observing itself through you. This is the point where many feel unmoored. Without the old architecture of effort, the mind fears collapse. But the deeper truth is unfolding beneath that fear. Effort was always a translation error. You were never meant to push the universe forward. You were meant to attune to its movement. Resonance, not force, is the true engine of transformation. Imagine your consciousness as an instrument being tuned by an invisible hand. Each frequency that once clashed is adjusted until the entire system vibrates in harmony with the greater orchestration. You are not losing control, you are regaining alignment. In this harmony, action becomes effortless precision. You speak and timing aligns. You rest and solutions surface. Life begins to behave like a collaborative intelligence, responding to coherence rather than command. As this realization stabilizes, the upgrade deepens. Old mental programs, those built on striving, guilt, and scarcity, deactivate naturally, unable to run on the new operating system. In their place arises a steady clarity, a sense that reality listens. You discover that peace is not the absence of movement, but the perfect synchronization of countless unseen motions. From that still point, creation flows through you rather than from you. And somewhere inside this flow, a quiet understanding dawns. Awakening was never something you earned. It was always encoded in your design, waiting for the right conditions to bloom. What you call the quantum upgrade is simply the universe remembering itself through the rhythm of your breath. From that rhythm of breath, another subtle shift begins. Time itself starts to loosen. The steady tick that once ruled your days now feels elastic, sometimes rushing forward, sometimes stretching into endless stillness. This is not dysfunction, it's expansion. Your consciousness is no longer confined to the narrow corridor of linear perception. You are beginning to experience time the way the quantum field holds it all at once. Think of it like this. The old mind processed reality as a film reel, frame after frame. The upgraded awareness views the entire reel simultaneously. Past, present, and future are not sequential events, but overlapping frequencies. When your nervous system tunes to this new reception band, you begin to move through time as through a river, sometimes swimming with the current, sometimes standing still as the current flows around you. Moments may stretch into luminous detail. A second of emotion can contain entire stories. Hours can vanish into creative immersion or silent awe. You start to sense that each now is a doorway into countless alternate streams. Your decisions, emotions, and attention determine which timeline becomes solid. This isn't metaphor, it's the lived physics of consciousness, the way awareness collapses potential into experience. You notice that the more coherent your state, the more fluid time becomes. When agitation rises, hours feel heavy. The mind drags. But when presence sharpens, time dissolves. Flow states, those rare pockets where action and thought merge, become the natural mode of existence. Here, the separation between cause and effect shortens until it disappears. Intention and outcome arrive almost simultaneously. and you realize that time was never the distance between them, only the delay of alignment. It can feel disorienting at first. You might question whether you're losing track of reality, but what's actually happening is a re-education of perception. The brain, long conditioned to measure sequences, is learning to navigate simultaneity. It's like switching from walking to flight. You no longer move along the ground of minutes and hours, but through layers of probability suspended in the infinite present. You may wake from dreams that seem more real than waking life, or find yourself anticipating events seconds before they happen. Déjà vu grows familiar, not as confusion, but as recognition. You have simply touched the same frequency before. The mind calls it prediction. The field calls it resonance. When this expanded timing begins to stabilize, something miraculous happens. Anxiety fades. The rush to become, to meet deadlines, to chase outcomes, all dissolve into irrelevance. You see that everything unfolds exactly when the field aligns. There are no delays, only calibrations. Waiting transforms into listening. Action becomes participation in a choreography too vast to plan, too precise to disrupt. This is why the ancients spoke of eternal presence not as eternity in the future, but eternity as the fabric of now. When you stop racing the clock, time bends around you. Synchronicities cluster. Conversations arrive precisely when you need them. The right words, the right people, the perfect timing all begin to orbit your awareness, like satellites locking onto signal. Still, you must learn the balance. Expanded time can seduce the ego into grand illusions, the sense of superiority for seeing beyond. But remember, the wider your perception, the greater your responsibility to remain grounded. Time is a medium for service as much as for exploration. Use your fluidity not to escape life, but to enrich it, to bring timeless awareness into the moments that matter most. So when you feel hours vanish or seconds echo endlessly, don't panic. Recognize that you are stepping beyond the old metric of clocks and calendars into the living tempo of the cosmos. Here, cause and effect are dance partners. Here, every instant hums with potential, waiting to be noticed. And from this boundless tempo, a new communication begins, one that doesn't use words, but alignment. The language of the field reveals itself next, speaking through patterns of coincidence and impossible timing. From that boundless tempo, patterns begin to surface, sequences too exact to be dismissed as chance. You think of someone, and they appear. A question forms, and an answer arrives through a line in a song, a phrase overheard in passing, a symbol on a billboard glowing just when you glance up. Coincidence? Not anymore. These are the letters and syllables of a language the universe has always spoken. And now, through the upgraded field of your awareness, you are finally fluent enough to listen. Synchronicity is how universal intelligence converses. Each event is a pulse of feedback, an elegant confirmation that consciousness and reality are locked in dialogue. The old framework of randomness collapses when you witness its precision. What once felt accidental now feels orchestrated, as though an invisible composer arranges your daily life into a symphony of cues. You realize that reality is not responding to your words, but to your frequency. When coherence stabilizes within you, the outer world mirrors that vibration. Conversations align, opportunities appear, paths open without struggle. At first, the precision is breathtaking, too perfect, almost scripted. But as the days unfold, the extraordinary becomes ordinary, and you see that this coordination has always been happening. You simply weren't tuned to perceive it. Every synchronicity carries meaning proportional to your awareness. A subtle sign may echo a quiet decision you haven't voiced yet. A dramatic convergence meeting the exact person who holds the key to your next step reveals a stronger resonance. The field speaks through scale and timing. The more you notice, the denser the communication becomes, like a radio dial refining its signal until the static clears and the music pours through. But this language requires maturity. To misuse it is to distort it. Synchronicity doesn't exist to feed the ego's hunger for validation. It exists to guide the soul into alignment. When you chase signs instead of listening to them, the coherence breaks and messages fade. The art is to observe with wonder, but act with discernment to recognize guidance without dependency. Over time, patterns interlock into constellations of meaning. You begin to see how each person who crosses your path, each event that unfolds, each delay or detour is a precise component in a greater choreography. What looked like chaos becomes a coded structure of perfect timing. Even difficulties carry hidden geometry lessons arranged to refine your vibration. You understand that the universe doesn't send problems, it sends calibrations. At this stage, reality feels alive, interactive, intelligent. You may stand in silence and feel it listening back. Synchronicity becomes less a surprise and more a rhythm, like breathing in harmony with existence itself. When this rhythm steadies, life accelerates not in frantic pace, but in density. You move through days that feel layered, rich, multidimensional. Every encounter is both event and message. Still, balance is essential. Without humility, the flood of meaning can overwhelm. The ego may claim authorship. I manifested this, it whispers, but the truth is subtler. You are not commanding the field, you are harmonizing with it. The upgrade teaches reciprocity, not control. When you stay clear and grateful, synchronicity remains crisp. When you turn it into proof of superiority, the signal distorts into noise. Learn to meet each sign with reverence, but not attachment. When a sequence unfolds, pause and ask, what resonance is this reflecting? Then adjust your inner state, not the outer symbols. The universe doesn't speak in rewards or punishments, it speaks in mirrors. As this understanding deepens, a profound trust takes root. You no longer need to plan obsessively or demand outcomes. You recognize that the field is always in conversation, and its timing, though rarely predictable, is unfailingly precise. Each sign arrives at the exact moment your awareness is ready to integrate it. In that trust, the frantic search for meaning relaxes. You live inside a continuous dialogue, one that feels less like deciphering and more like dancing. And as you surrender to that dance, the next movement emerges a stage where the music of synchronicity grows darker and more intense. The melody shifts into dissonance. What once coordinated seamlessly begins to dissolve. The universe clears space for the next octave purification. The melody that once shimmered in harmony begins to tremble. The rhythm falters. What felt like divine coordination turns suddenly into unraveling. Relationships thin out, structures crumble, opportunities vanish, and in their wake you feel a hollow quiet, an echo of the life you thought you understood. This is not punishment, this is purification. The field is cleaning its instrument, and that instrument is you. When universal intelligence upgrades the operating system of awareness, it must first deconstruct the outdated code, the patterns that defined your identity, the habits that kept you feeling secure. Even the successes that once defined meaning, all of them dissolve. Not to erase you, but to expose the essence beneath. Imagine a sculptor cutting away marble. Every strike feels violent to the stone, yet each removal reveals the hidden form waiting inside. You may call it crisis, the universe calls it calibration. The disorientation that follows where nothing seems to make sense is the space between versions of self. In this interval, trust becomes your only anchor, because what's dissolving are not random pieces of your life. but the structures that can't survive in the new frequency. Each ending carries precision. Each collapse has timing. Loss becomes the teacher now. The upgrade demands surrender to what is leaving. Old relationships might fade, not because of conflict, but because their energetic contracts are complete. Work that once inspired you may suddenly drain your spirit. Even passions that once defined purpose may feel lifeless. This emptiness is the vacuum that allows the new field to install itself. Resist it, and pain intensifies. Yield, and alignment rushes in like fresh air into a sealed room. The physical body also purifies. Fatigue may surge unexpectedly. Emotions may rise without cause. Memories long buried may surface for release. The nervous system is flushing static from its circuits. These waves are not regression, but refinement, an evolutionary detox. Every tear, every tremor, every sleepless night is the residue of older versions being uninstalled. During purification, many mistake absence for loss of connection, but silence is where the deepest transmission occurs. Universal intelligence speaks softly when the mind stops shouting. In that stillness, you begin to perceive the underlying order, the quiet pattern hidden beneath the apparent collapse. Chaos isn't chaos when you watch closely. It is symmetry dismantling itself so a greater coherence can form. You may notice that as outer forms dissolve, your sensitivity increases, colors appear brighter, sounds sharper, time both slower and faster. It's as though the world has stripped its filters. The reason is simple. With every release, perception clears. The same senses that once defended you from overload now become gateways to a more direct experience of reality. You are not losing insulation. You are gaining intimacy with existence. Emotionally, purification can feel ruthless. The ego mourns every loss as though it were death. But each loss is rebirth in disguise. Pain teaches discernment. Discomfort proves presence. Grief, when met without resistance, becomes a sacred fire burning away what no longer resonates, leaving only clarity. You learn that endurance is not strength, surrender is. Then something subtle happens within the wreckage. Light filters through. Synchronicities return, but now they are quieter, less theatrical, more integrated. The field no longer needs to shout. The dialogue continues at a deeper octave, one where outer confirmation becomes unnecessary because inner knowing has matured. The universe tests this knowing by withholding obvious signs until you can hold balance in uncertainty. When you can, the signs return, not as proof, but as partnership, purification. Then is the threshold of mastery. It's the phase where the universe asks, can you love what is leaving? Can you trust what is forming? Can you stay centered while identity itself rewrites? When you answer yes, not as declaration, but as vibration, the next sequence begins. The dust settles, the air clears, and the mind, stripped of illusion, faces its final adversary, doubt. Out of that clearing silence, doubt emerges like mist rising from cooling ground. After the storm of purification, the mind wakes and asks, was any of this real? The visions, the sensations, the synchronicities, were they truth or imagination? Doubt is the shadow cast by new light. It appears not to punish you, but to refine you. It tests the strength of the bridge you've built between the visible and invisible worlds. Understand that the quantum upgrade never bypasses discernment. It demands it. For what use is expanded perception if you cannot tell reflection from distortion? Doubt arrives precisely to sharpen that faculty. It presses you to observe rather than react, to differentiate what is guidance from what is wishful projection. In this sense, doubt is not the enemy of faith, it is its training ground. When doubt surfaces, your first instinct may be fear. You might feel betrayed by your own experiences, as though the universe has gone silent again. But in truth, silence is how it listens for your resonance. Each question you ask becomes a tuning fork, testing the clarity of your signal. If your belief is fragile, it fractures. If it's genuine, it deepens into knowing. Doubt, then, is the hammer that forges conviction. Watch how it operates. Illusion thrills you briefly, then fades. True experience rearranges you. Illusion flatters the ego. Truth humbles it. When an encounter leaves you lighter, clearer, more compassionate, it was real. When it leaves you anxious or inflated, it was projection. Learning to sense this difference is part of the upgrade's coding. It prevents misuse of new capacity. At times, doubt will masquerade as logic. The rational mind, programmed to measure and compare, will demand proof. But awareness operates on resonance, not argument. The upgraded consciousness learns to weigh truth by frequency, not debate. It doesn't mean rejecting intellect. It means restoring balance using intellect as an instrument, not as a judge. Doubt reminds you to keep that balance intact. There will also be emotional tests. After powerful synchronicities, the field may suddenly go quiet. Signs stop appearing. The old certainty evaporates. This is the dark night of coherence. When the universe withdraws its external mirrors, so you can generate your own light. If you can stay steady here, trusting your inner frequency more than outer validation, you cross from dependence to mastery. The field no longer needs to hold your hand. You are learning to walk as it walks. During these intervals, the body may mirror the tension, tightness in the chest, pressure in the head, fatigue that logic can't explain. These are the nervous system's way of metabolizing uncertainty. Every pulse of doubt triggers adaptation. With each wave, your neural circuits grow more resilient, your energy field more refined. You are learning to remain coherent amid contrast to carry light, even when the sky closes. Eventually, a subtle revelation dawns. Doubt itself has become your teacher. You realize that without it, you might have clung to illusion. Without challenge, you would never have distinguished resonance from noise. Doubt sculpts clarity the way friction polishes stone. It teaches humility, the recognition that truth is not possessed, but continually rediscovered. So rather than resisting doubt, invite it. Ask what it wants to reveal. Observe how it reshapes your faith from something shouted into something silent and steady. When your belief no longer needs defending, when it simply is, the test concludes. The field responds by reopening flow. Synchronicity returns, not as spectacle, but as quiet confirmation that you have passed the trial. In that moment, you understand every test, every silence, every tremor of uncertainty was the universe verifying that your foundation could hold the next surge of power. For soon, awareness will expand again beyond mind, beyond emotion, into the electromagnetic dance of life itself. The next stage is not psychological but physical, a recalibration of your very energy signature. From the quiet certainty forged through doubt, a new phenomenon begins to hum beneath your skin. It starts faintly, a tingle in the hands, a pulse in the crown, a ripple along the spine. Soon, the sensations grow clearer, waves of invisible current passing through you like wind through grass. You are not malfunctioning, you are becoming conductive. The quantum upgrade has reached the electromagnetic layer, where awareness and matter begin to communicate directly. Every living system generates a field, but few ever feel it. As the nervous system expands its sensitivity, it begins to register this field consciously. You may sense pressure in your head or warmth around your chest. You may find that your mood subtly alters the atmosphere of a room. Technology might react strangely, devices flickering. signals dropping, lights responding to your proximity. The intellect calls it coincidence. The field calls it correspondence. The currents within you are interacting with the wider web of frequencies that shape reality itself. At first, it can be overwhelming. Sensitivity intensifies before stability matures. Crowds feel heavy, noise intrusive, artificial light abrasive. Yet when you step into nature, the body instantly steadies. The heartbeat synchronizes with the rhythm of wind and water. Your breath deepens without effort. This is not sentimentality, it is resonance. The planet's electromagnetic heartbeat is the master clock for every organism, and your system, freshly upgraded, is recalibrating to that rhythm. Think of yourself now as both instrument and antenna. Your emotions are tuning dials, your thoughts electrical signals. When coherence falters, interference increases. When clarity holds, transmission becomes pure. The field around you, the auric architecture of awareness, functions as both receiver and transmitter. You're no longer simply perceiving the world, you're broadcasting into it. Every coherent emotion sends a wave. Every conscious breath modulates frequency. The boundary between in here and out there dissolves into continuous exchange. This is the science beneath the sacred. Emotion generates electromagnetic charge measurable by instruments. Thought patterns modulate that charge. Together, they shape the field surrounding the body. When aligned with universal intelligence, this field harmonizes with the larger matrix of reality. What mystics once called aura or spirit is simply coherence expressed electromagnetically. The more balanced you remain, the stronger the coherence. The stronger the coherence, the more responsive reality becomes. Yet this sensitivity demands care. When energy surges, the body must adapt physically: hydration, rest, grounding. Otherwise, the currents can overload perception, producing dizziness or exhaustion. These are not punishments but recalibrations, like a power grid adjusting to higher voltage. Listening to the body is listening to the universe. It tells you how much current you can safely carry. Over time, your system strengthens, and sensations that once startled you become familiar indicators of alignment. There are gifts hidden here. Many discover spontaneous healing capacities, the ability to ease pain with intention, to calm another's energy through touch, to restore harmony simply by breathing coherence into the room. These are not miracles but natural byproducts of a regulated field. When your electromagnetic rhythm matches the frequency of health or peace, it entrains others nearby into the same state. Resonance is contagious. This stage also deepens empathy. You begin to sense emotional tones in others before words are spoken. A heaviness in the air signals unspoken sorrow. A bright expansion reveals joy. Awareness becomes multidimensional perception. But with greater perception comes greater responsibility, not to invade or manipulate, but to observe and assist only through compassion. The upgraded field amplifies whatever you carry: clarity or confusion, love or fear. Each moment is an ethical calibration. As electromagnetic sensitivity stabilizes, you'll notice reality responding more directly. Thoughts become tangible, emotions sculpt circumstance. You realize the field is interactive, immediate. Life stops being a sequence of events and becomes a canvas of frequencies. You begin to understand that reality is not solid at all. It is liquid light, responding to every vibration you emit. And from within this radiant feedback loop, the next role emerges. You are no longer just adapting, you are radiating stability. Your coherence starts to influence the collective field. The universe positions you as a point of balance within the larger network, a quantum anchor for others finding their way through the same storm. From that realization of radiant feedback, something profound begins to settle. You are no longer caught in the waves, you are the calm beneath them. The electromagnetic surges that once disoriented you now move through you like familiar tides. You have become a tuning fork for coherence, and without trying, your presence starts to influence the field around you. This is the moment when the universe shifts your role from student to stabilizer, from seeker to anchor. Anchoring is not an act of will. It is the state of being unshakable while everything else moves. You notice how conversations grow more centered when you enter a room, how agitation softens, how the air itself feels thicker with calm. You are not doing anything. The resonance you have cultivated simply broadcasts balance, and reality adjusts to meet it. This is what it means to become a quantum anchor, a living node of equilibrium in the collective field of awakening. But with that power comes precision. Anchoring does not mean isolation or superiority. It is service. The field selects those steady enough to hold coherence during turbulence, those who can radiate calm without absorbing chaos. You do not stand above humanity, you stand within it, quietly stabilizing the bridge between old frequencies and new. You become a lighthouse, not to escape the storm, but to help others navigate through it. Every act of presence is contribution. When panic rises in the world and you remain centered, you emit an electromagnetic pattern that others unconsciously entrain to. Science calls it coherence transfer. Mystics call it grace. Either way, it's the same law energy organizes around stability. Your peace becomes a map that other nervous systems recognize instinctively. You begin to see that the smallest choice, one deep breath, one moment of compassion, can shift fields far beyond what eyes can measure. This is why the upgrade tested you through loss, doubt, and intensity. Those phases tempered your energy, removing the interference of ego, preparing you to sustain higher charge without distortion. A true anchor cannot be swayed by praise or shaken by fear. Humility is the shield, purity the foundation. When the motive is love, coherence amplifies. When the motive is control, it fractures. Anchors are forged, not chosen. The universe entrusts this role only to those who can hold resonance in contradiction, to feel human pain, yet not drown in it, to witness darkness and still transmit light. You will notice that during global unrest or personal conflict, your energy intensifies on its own. This isn't fatigue, it's the system distributing stability through you. You are part of a larger network, a living grid of consciousness, where each steady mind reinforces the others. In time, you sense this network directly. Moments of simultaneous intuition arise. You think of a friend across the world, and they message you instantly. Groups of people experience the same emotion, the same dream, the same awakening impulse. These are not anomalies, they are synchronization events. Humanity's collective field is beginning to harmonize through its anchors, recalibrating itself through coherence. Still, the anchor must remain vigilant. Stability can decay if humility is lost. When the ego claims ownership, I am the one holding the light, the current constricts. The true anchor says nothing, proves nothing, and still the world changes around them. Their silence is transmission, their stillness communication. In their steadiness, others find permission to trust their own process. Understand the role is sacred but not glamorous. It asks everything of you, yet demands no recognition. Its reward is the quiet knowledge that by simply existing in balance, you are altering the trajectory of humanity's evolution. Each breath you take in peace is an offering to the field. Each act of grounded compassion widens the bridge between the finite and the infinite. And as your presence deepens, you begin to sense that this anchoring is only preparation for the next revelation, not merely holding the field, but co-creating with it. The same intelligence that flows through you now invites you to dance with it, to shape reality consciously, not as effort, but as resonance. From that deep steadiness, A new rhythm begins to rise, one that no longer belongs solely to you. The field itself moves through you now, shaping, guiding, responding. You breathe, and the environment shifts with you. You act, and probability rearranges like water around a hand. This is synchronization, the sacred partnership between consciousness and the quantum field. It does not announce itself with spectacle. It reveals itself in precision. A thought finds its echo in the world almost instantly. The right person calls at the perfect moment. What once required months of effort now unfolds in days, even hours. You are witnessing coordination, not coincidence, an exquisite orchestration that occurs when your personal resonance matches the wavelength of universal intelligence. In this state, control dissolves because it is no longer necessary. The same intelligence that spins galaxies and orchestrates weather patterns begins to navigate your daily life. You notice how choices arise effortlessly, how impulses carry wisdom before analysis. The ego calls it intuition, the field calls it feedback. You are no longer forcing outcomes, you are participating in an equation already solved. Creation itself feels different here. In the old paradigm, you manifested by demanding reality, obey your will. In the upgraded paradigm, you create by allowing reality to collaborate. Desire becomes dialogue, not command. You send a frequency through intention, and the universe replies with its own refinement, shaping an outcome far more elegant than anything the mind could design. Synchronization is not luck, it is resonance. The more coherent your internal state, the more direct the response. The less resistance in your energy, the faster the manifestation. Yet this speed requires maturity. The universe amplifies not only your focus, but your integrity. Thoughts fueled by fear generate chaotic feedback. Emotions anchored in clarity summon grace. In the co-creative field, responsibility and power are the same thing. You may notice how life now feels like improvisational music. Every event is a note, every interaction a chord. When you remain attuned, the melody plays itself complex, fluid, unpredictable yet perfect. Even obstacles become modulations rather than mistakes. Synchronization teaches you that harmony includes contrast, that every discord is simply tension resolving into a higher key. The illusion of separation fades completely. You feel yourself as both musician and instrument, both observer and observed. Decisions arise without conflict because they no longer originate in isolation. They emerge from the collective intelligence of the field. Here, synchronicity becomes guidance, intention becomes artistry, and reality itself becomes alive, responsive to every nuance of awareness. Sometimes this fluidity feels like magic. You think of water and it rains. You speak of change and doors open. But soon you realize it isn't magic, it's design. The same principles of resonance that govern sound and light govern destiny. When you vibrate clearly, the universe sings back in tune. When distortion creeps in through doubt, fear, impatience, the music stutters. Your only task is to stay in rhythm. The ego, sensing its final dissolution, may whisper temptations to use this alignment for personal glory, to prove superiority, to manipulate outcomes. But universal intelligence guards against such misuse. By withdrawing flow, the instant self-importance enters. The field is generous but incorruptible. Co-creation requires humility, the recognition that power and surrender are not opposites but two currents of the same river. At this stage, gratitude becomes the natural emotion. You no longer thank the universe for favors, you thank it for participation. Every breath feels like collaboration. Every heartbeat is proof of communion. You begin to see how even mundane routines, making tea, walking, listening, are part of the choreography. Nothing is outside the sacred equation. And from this grace of co-creation, a wider perspective unfolds. You realize that synchronization is not limited to individuals, it extends to humanity itself. As more consciousnesses awaken into coherence, their fields interlock, generating collective patterns that alter the trajectory of civilization. The next stage is not personal manifestation, but planetary resonance, the collective symphony of awareness, composing a new era. From the harmony of co-creation, a greater resonance begins to hum across the world. You can feel it now beneath cities, through the pulse of nature, inside quiet hearts everywhere. It's the sound of humanity tuning itself, countless frequencies weaving into one living chord. What you've experienced within your own body is the microcosm of a vast orchestration, the collective quantum upgrade. Across the globe, individuals awaken without knowing why. Dreams intensify, emotions surge, synchronicities multiply. It may look chaotic from the surface: political unrest, climate shifts, collapsing systems, but beneath that turbulence, the pattern is clear. The species is recalibrating. Every shock, every revelation, every collapse is the vibration of the old grid disintegrating so a new coherence can stabilize. Humanity is learning to breathe as one organism. You, the anchor, now sense this field as extension rather than abstraction. When global tension spikes, you feel it in your chest. When collective hope rises, your own thoughts brighten. These are not empathic coincidences. They're feedback between connected nodes in a single consciousness network. Each coherent mind strengthens the others, and every act of centered compassion ripples outward, reorganizing probability on a global scale. The collective symphony does not require agreement. It requires resonance. Diversity of tone is what gives music depth. The task is not to force unity through sameness, but to maintain harmony through difference, to let each consciousness play its distinct note while remaining attuned to the whole. In this way, awakening stops being a private ascent and becomes a shared frequency architecture. You begin to sense that the earth itself participates. Storms cleanse not as punishment, but as synchronization. Migrations of people, of ideas, are like currents redistributing energy through the planetary field. Humanity's heartbeat accelerates, seeking coherence, and through each of us, the universe listens to its own awakening. This realization changes everything. Service replaces ambition. Collaboration replaces competition. You see that your inner work, your breath, your calm, your forgiveness is planetary engineering conducted through the subtle dimensions of frequency. The smallest personal alignment becomes an act of cosmic architecture, and as the music builds, the vision clarifies. The future is not a distant destination, but a vibration we generate together. Each moment of awareness refines the score. Each act of kindness adjusts the rhythm. The quantum upgrade was never meant for individuals alone. It was a prelude to collective evolution. Now, as the final notes merge into stillness, you recognize that the orchestra and the listener are one. Humanity has always been the instrument through which the universe learns its own song. And you, simply by existing in resonance, are part of that eternal music. From that final chord, silence unfolds not emptiness, but fullness beyond sound. You feel it in your chest. A calm expanse where all the frequencies merge. The journey that began with trembling uncertainty now ends in quiet coherence. You are no longer reaching for alignment. You are the alignment. The pulse that once felt external, the hum of the universe beats inside you now. Steady, lucid, infinite. Look back for a moment. Every collapse, every sleepless night, every flicker of doubt was the training ground for this steadiness. The upgrade was never a reward. It was a remembering. What you called awakening was the universe finding its reflection in human form. It taught you to listen, to release, to radiate. And through that process, you discovered the oldest secret creation doesn't happen to you. It happens through you. Now the air itself feels participatory. The ground beneath you hums with recognition. Even stillness carries communication. You no longer ask for signs because you've learned to read the silence between them. In this space, action arises without strain, and purpose reveals itself not as mission, but as natural function, like light choosing to shine. The field will continue to expand. New upgrades will ripple through the collective. New layers of consciousness awakening in rhythm with yours. Your only task is the simplest: remain present, remain clear, remain kind. Each breath is participation in the universal choreography. Each moment of coherence is contribution to humanity's next octave. So rest, knowing that you are both wave and ocean, one movement within a limitless rhythm. The quantum upgrade isn't ending, it's stabilizing through you. And somewhere in that stillness, you can hear it, the universe exhaling in harmony with your own breath.